It is 9:02 in the morning. Across Halifax's north end, children had pressed against classroom windows, watching a ship burn through the harbor. The fire looked almost peaceful, black smoke rising against a clear December sky, orange flame catching on the water below. Nobody ran, and nobody raised an alarm, because nothing in the experience of anyone watching suggested they should look away. They were curious, and in that moment, curiosity felt completely safe. What none of them knew was what that ship was carrying, and by the time they found out, those windows would no longer exist. This is how approximately 1,600 people died in the seconds after 9:02 am, and why the final toll would climb far higher.
Welcome to Dark Ledger.
Halifax in 1917 is a war city. Its harbor, deep, ice-free, perfectly placed on the North Atlantic, is the primary staging point for Allied convoys crossing to Europe. Everything the war needs passes through here. The Richmond District, a dense working-class neighborhood along the northern waterfront, sits a few hundred yards from the piers. No buffer zone. No evacuation plan. No protocol for what happens if something goes wrong, because no one had been asked to imagine it going wrong. On the morning of December 6th, two ships are moving through the Narrows simultaneously. The SS Imo, a Norwegian vessel chartered to carry relief supplies to civilians in occupied Belgium, is outbound. Her captain, behind schedule after a fuel delay, wants to make up lost time. The other ship is the SS Mont Blanc. She is French. Unremarkable from the outside. And below her deck, she is carrying something that has never been assembled in a single hull in Halifax Harbor. What the Mont Blanc is carrying is the part of this story the city was never supposed to know. Her manifest: 2,300 tons of wet picric acid, a highly explosive artillery compound, 200 tons of TNT, 10 tons of gun cotton, and 35 tons of benzol, an industrial fuel stored in open barrels on the deck, directly above everything else. Captain Aim Lemedec knows exactly what his ship is carrying, which is why he made one specific decision before entering Halifax Harbor. He did not raise the red warning flag. Under normal maritime practice, a vessel carrying dangerous cargo flies that flag. But Lemedec calculates that a red flag in 1917 invites a German torpedo. He decides the risk of being sunk outweighs the risk of a collision. It is a rational decision. A wartime decision, made inside a system that has already agreed to route approximately 2.9 kilotons of potential destruction through a civilian harbor without telling the civilians. Harbor pilot Francis Mackey, boarding the Mont Blanc the night before, asks whether a protective escort can be arranged given what the ship is carrying. He is told none is available. The Mont Blanc enters the Narrows with no flag, no escort, and no one on the waterfront who understands what is moving past them. At approximately 8:45 am, the Mont Blanc and the Imo meet in the Narrows. The Imo has drifted to the wrong side of the channel. Both pilots signal. Both ships correct. Each move undoes the last. The gap closes. The collision is almost gentle, barely 1 knot of relative speed. The Imo grinds along the Mont Blanc's hull and pulls away. Both ships intact. No one injured. Then a spark finds the benzol barrels. Lemedec and Mackey understand immediately what that means. No fighting it. No time. They order the crew to abandon ship. The men row hard for the Dartmouth shore, shouting warnings in French to a waterfront that speaks English. The burning ship drifts, unmanned, toward Pier 6. Halifax Fire Engine Number 6 arrives within minutes. The crew connects hoses and prepares to fight what looks like a ship fire. They have no idea what they are standing 20 feet from. The correct response is not to fight the fire, it is to run. But nobody has told them that. Nobody can. Approximately 19 minutes pass between the collision and the detonation. No evacuation order. No alarm. The people of Halifax continue to watch from their windows. At 9:04 am, the Mont Blanc runs aground at Pier 6 and detonates. The pressure wave moves at the speed of sound. The Richmond district, homes, churches, schools, factories, is erased. And the windows everyone is standing at, faces against the glass, eyes open, blow inward. Surgeons perform approximately 250 eye removals in the 2 weeks that follow. 41 people are left permanently blind. They were not people who ignored a warning. There was no warning to ignore. They walked to the window to see. That is all they did. 1 week after the explosion, the government convenes an inquiry. Its conclusion is swift. The fault lies with Captain Lemedec and pilot Mackey, both charged with manslaughter. Both eventually acquitted on appeal. 2 men. 1 collision. Case resolved. What the inquiry never examines is the system that placed 2,300 tons of explosives on a ship with no flag and no escort through a 900-foot channel beside homes and schools. With no evacuation plan, because the system had never been asked to imagine failure. Individual men were tried. The system was not. In the reconstruction that followed, that logic continued. The Halifax Relief Commission rebuilt the Richmond district from the ground up. New codes, fireproof construction, Canada's first government-assisted housing project rising from the rubble. Africville, the black Nova Scotian community along the Bedford Basin, with its own church, its own roots, its own long history in Halifax, received almost none of it. Same explosion. Same harbor. Same city. The reconstruction drew a line, and Africville was on the wrong side of it. The community rebuilt on its own. Decades later, the city demolished it. The disaster changed everything in the north end of Halifax, except who was considered worth rebuilding for. Vince Coleman was a railway telegraph dispatcher in the Richmond district, approximately 44 years old. On the morning of December 6th, a colleague told him what was burning and told him to run. He got up, started for the door. Then he stopped. An inbound passenger train from St. John was minutes from the Richmond station. He sat back down at his key and transmitted one message: "Hold up the train." Ammunition ship on fire in harbor, making for Pier 6. Goodbye. The train stopped. The passengers survived. Vince Coleman died at his desk. The largest man-made explosion in history before the atomic age did not begin with an act of war. It began with a harbor that had accepted an extraordinary risk, and a city that was never told it was living inside one. The people at the windows never had a chance to move, because the decision that put them there had already been made.